Coming up on Smart Tech today, Matthew Cassinelli and I talk about video conferencing. Zoom is coming to all of those smart displays sitting throughout your home, plus improvements to the Google Assistant. And most importantly, we talk about air quality, air sensors, air purifiers, and so much more. So breathe in, breathe out, and tune in for this episode of Smart Tech Today. Smart Tech Today is brought to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? Well, LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Smart Tech Today is brought to you by Raycon. Raycon's wireless earbuds are perfect for conference calls, video calls, music, or binging podcasts. Now's the time to get the latest and greatest from Raycon. Go to buyraycon.com/STT and get 15% off your order today. Welcome to Smart Tech Today, where we explain the exciting, the dynamic, and the sometimes confusing subject that is the Internet of Things. Yo, I am Mikah Sargent.
What up? I'm Matthew Cassinelli. We did not plan that intro.
What up, what up? It's because of my shirt. It says yo.
Okay.
I've had this shirt since freshman year of high school, and it is still, I just love it. I think it just says yo, and it's funny, and I like it. So I decided to wear it today. I'm wearing a t-shirt. I don't normally wear t-shirts for podcasts, but by golly, the world is on fire, and a lot of other things that I'm not going to get into. So yeah, I'm wearing a t-shirt, and by golly, I feel good about it. So what are we here to do? What are we talking about? What's the show? How does it work? How does this work?
Well, I was thinking about talking about some smart tech today.
Oh, some smart tech today. Okay. Well, up first, I think this is a great story. I think that every single video conferencing, video meeting application should exist in some function on these silly smart displays that many of us have. You got a webcam, you got a microphone, you got speakers, and you got a big old screen, or a small screen, but still relatively large screen. And all those things combined to make for kind of a great experience for doing video conferencing. And Zoom is the latest to join the pack. It's coming to Nest, to Echo, and to Facebook Portal. For you mere mortals who bought Facebook Portals, it is also coming to your platform, as it were. And like I said, I think this is great. I love the idea of having, if I'm going to be doing all these stinking video conferences from home, give me more places to do it, please.
Yes, this seems like a very logical conclusion. And kind of like the interesting angle for this story, too, is that Facebook Portal is opening up to more than just the Facebook methods of communication. And so now it's more of a generalized smart display. I did see some people talking on Twitter, too, how this makes a lot more sense than the $600 Zoom video conferencing screen that they made. So I'm curious how well that sold. Because this is a few weeks later, they're like, okay, that didn't work. So maybe we need to go everywhere else. And also now, as we record this is hot on the heels of, there was like a major Zoom outage this morning because everybody who's back to school all signed in at the same time, and then everything crashed. So I saw a couple of like school districts in the Bay Area all recommend Google Meet as an alternate. So Google's getting some free promotion there. But now people can do it on all of their smart displays. So this seems just pretty. We've talked about the smart displays in the past and the having video conferencing on all of them. And it just makes a lot of sense because we'll be able to have those conversations a little more casually and have a special device for it. And then you can kind of like go away when you're done, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the thing. The go away, I think, is important because there have been a few companies trying to create an always on display to recreate the in-person experience. So you have this thing in your house that's always watching you with other people watching you. And I get it. I get the idea there. And I think that in an office environment, I do like that idea. If you are going into the office and you've got part of your group in another country or something like that, or across the United States, whatever it happens to be, and it's sort of a window into that space too, and you can have casual conversations or what have you. But I don't know. In practice, I feel like a lot of those things don't end up working out how they were expected to work out. I used to work for a news organization, and we started opening up offices in other places, and I remember the managers and the director of news at the time just sort of this wide-eyed belief that and we're going to have these windows into the DC office and the Denver office, and it never happened. It actually never happened at all. It didn't come to fruition because it's not an easy thing to get right, and I think that it kind of proves time and time again that the best thing to do there is just to have it works for now, and then it goes away. You just do your video call, and then you hang up the phone.
I've always been totally sold on that. I remember I just found the article from 2012 of a service called Perch for iPad 2 that you would mount an iPad on the wall, and then in the other office there would be an iPad on the wall, and it used like face detection so that if you weren't looking at it and up close, it would mute everything. And that was always really cool. But pretty sure it's not around anymore.
This was from 2000 what?
2012. So it's been, the portal idea has been around for a while.
And if you go to perch.co, you still have to sign up to be notified about the technology.
Yeah. I don't think it ever got out of the concept video. But I worked at VaynerMedia, and we had a Skype portal that we used between offices for a while. And I remember setting that up some mornings, like not every day, but it was kind of nice. It only really worked when there was like less than 100 people in the company, I think. But then, and it was always like somebody would be over there like, hello, trying to get the attention of somebody on the screen, and it's muted. And so like nobody knew what was going on. But
man. Well, speaking of muting, there's a new feature that's coming to Nest, and it reminds me of what Amazon has done right with its Echo system. So I know that's the joke, and nobody needs to make it. We all roll our eyes. So with its Echo devices, you've got a bunch of different speakers in a bunch of different places around your house. And Amazon, I feel, has really nailed the multi-room, multi-grouping audio experience of I can quite literally just tell the Echo to play this playlist downstairs, and it knows that I mean the Echo Studio, the Echo Show, and I can't remember what the third thing is, some sort of Echo thing, and it plays it on those three devices, and it knows that just like that.
Yeah, and cool.
Yeah, it's super cool, and it was so easy to set up, and it works. It seems to work every time. I've not had any issues with it. And now Nest is coming out with multi-room audio controls, and it looks a lot like what the Amazon Echo has offered up to this point. And I would like to believe that Google can pull this off just as well. I mean, Google for a long time has had the Chromecast devices and Chromecast audio before that. I don't believe they sell the Chromecast audio alone anymore. It's, you can just get a Chromecast, but casting to those different things. And they had this idea of multi-audio through Chromecast audio. You just connect a powered speaker to the little Chromecast audio puck and be able to stream audio to it. So they've got a little bit of, they're a bit of a veteran in this space. And so I could see this working quite well. And I just think it's a great way to do things. And for some people who have multiple devices of the same type, you can do stereo pairing. So that way you get left and right channels through, two equal devices. And other than that, like I said, you can have I want you to play throughout the entire house, and then the speakers in all the different rooms will play. I just had this idea of like some fantastically loud classical music playing, da 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 da, and there's just cymbals, and the whole house is just very loud, and it's wonderful. I'm sure John knows the name of that song, and I probably got the pitches wrong, but bear with me.
All I know is from V for Vendetta.
Yes,
I watched
thank
that
you. That's what I was thinking of.
Is
exactly.
It 1917 Overture?
I think it's the Overture. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially if you could have, they should totally do that in a commercial where there's echo, or there's like a bunch of different ones and it like crashes on different speakers as you go around, because that would be cool, like all around you.
Yeah, you're trying to like run away and then suddenly you back up. Somebody spills flour on one and the flour goes throughout the whole room.
I totally wrote that down because I want to try that more often. I've only rarely used my HomePods with the stereo pairing, but you kind of have to pair them together permanently, and you can't really like use them separately after that. So it's not.
I wonder. I would love to know the number of people who can actually say my HomePods.
I know you're gonna.
You've got to be. Make fun of me. I know. I'm sorry. It's just there's. This is the problem though. I have honestly considered
my night HomePod.
Oh my God! I've honestly considered getting another HomePod so that I can do the stereo pairing to make them my my soundbar essentially. But I just want Apple to make a soundbar. Yeah, Apple, just make a soundbar.
It doesn't. I don't think the stereo pair stays connected when you use Apple TV, and even then, yeah, it's a little much for me to have two of those expensive speakers in the same place as opposed to spreading it out more and getting to use it. Like, I will say my justification, which is not a good justification, was that I make videos about Siri shortcuts, and so I wanted a HomePod on my office desk so I could pull it into videos without having to move it from downstairs. So, so it's all about my workflow, I need it for my work.
You practically just have
I'm the shortcuts guy. I'm the Siri shortcuts guy.
I know. It makes sense. It makes sense.
It was not a smart choice. I will say that. Especially, hopefully they'll come out with a HomePod Mini or something like that. Sometime soon, maybe. Rumors. I don't like to. Shouldn't spread rumors, but.
Fact is, Amazon and perhaps now Google have nailed the multi-room audio experience. And agreed. I still have issues with AirPlay 2 devices that were supposed to help nail that experience. So Apple, you've not really nailed it for me, but Amazon has for sure, and I'll be interested to see. I think I've got 2 Google Nest devices of some sort that I could try this new multi-room audio experience with. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm going to try that out too. I've got my 2 free Nest Minis from Spotify and then YouTube consecutively. So, but then also coming back to the whole Google Meet thing is they're rolling it out for Chromecast. And I was curious, I was almost confused. And if you maybe had an interpretation of this, of exactly how does that work? Is it, I guess it could just be for, even we were discussing before the show that my webcam is in a different spot than the computer screen, and I always have to look back and forth. But maybe for Zoom calls, it's not as important to look directly into the camera. So you can have your Chromecast now show your Google Meet call on that screen instead, which is interesting.
Yeah. So you either use your phone or your computer to do Google Meet, and then you can make it big on your TV. So here's what I could see this, but then why wouldn't I just, I guess some computers don't have, like laptops and smartphones don't have like an HDMI in. But for me, I would set it up with, I wouldn't use Google Meet in the first place, but in a world where I'm using Google Meet, I would put the, Windows machine and HDMI into the TV, set up the Windows machine's webcam in the middle, but probably not even do that. I would use the Logitech thing and plug it in and have that above the television, and then HDMI to the TV. But if I didn't have the HDMI, then I guess you could Google what is it called? Just cast. They don't say Google Cast. They, you cast it to the television. That's just the problem with that is that that's a lot that you're asking the network to do. And
yeah, that's a good point.
The whole thing with video conversations is they already have an inherent level of awkwardness. And the more lag that is introduced to the stream, the more awkward things get and the more difficult it is to have a conversation. Take it from us, folks. And so I don't know. I mean, if this works, that's great, but maybe they're overestimating people's networks.
Yeah.
Somebody had to ask for this, right? Somebody wanted this.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to say is even that does make me think of Google Stadia and how they expect everybody to be able to stream like 4K video games all day long or something like, but I think it is probably more one of those cases where like, why not? Why prevent people from doing it? And I always have to come back to, there's so many people attending these all day long now, and just making it as convenient and comfortable as possible. Put it up on the other screen if you're going to be stuck there all day, and just let them do it. So
I guess that's a good point. If I'm, wanting to do some chores while this meeting is going on, it's a lot easier to see, the big 4K television you have in your living room from across the room rather than toting your computer with you to the bathroom and, accidentally getting that caught on camera.
Going viral.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And accidentally going viral. So I suppose that makes sense. There are times where having it on that larger television, and then if you've got, Bluetooth headphones in, then you can move around, especially if they've got a microphone or something like that. So that makes sense a little bit more. But again, that lag, that'd be my concern, is that you would end up having an issue where the voices don't match the audio and all of that. When in public, wear a mask. Just a teeny weeny task. It helps keep us safe and sound, health and care all around. On your mouth and on your nose. I don't know the rest of the words, but that's so far how it goes.
Good to cover both of those.
Aw. And then it says, if you want to hear that again, you can ask me if I wear a mask. I don't think I want to hear it again, but I'm glad it's happening. The Google Assistant is encouraging folks to wear a mask with those lyrics that have been written by, I don't know whom, but this is good.
Google itself, the assistant itself, spontaneously came up with it. No, yeah.
Oh my God.
Google's got a nice little sing-song along to the tune of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star for, I'm assuming this is for kids, to basically get them into the tune, like the mood to wear your masks and things like that. So, of course.
Yeah, so I'm listening to it currently, and it sounds like a vocoder. So it's this creepy kind of voice that's playing. I don't know if we probably shouldn't play it on the stream. So the best I can do is explain it. We'll include a link so that you can learn about it. But it almost looks like the person's wallpaper is dancing to the song in the background, which is kind of fun. I don't think that's actually what's happening. I think it's just one of those live wallpapers. But when in public, wear a mask, just a teeny weeny task is kind of how it sounds.
Yeah. This is, you can say, hey G, play the mask song. So I think it was, again, being a non-parent, my first reaction was like, wow, that's very cheesy. But then I could just imagine kids walking around their house just being like, when in public, wear a mask, and like getting really into it. So.
Oh, I gotta love that. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
My heart is melted, and it's all
even
good
if
again.
It's maybe a little obnoxious or something, they can have fun with it. And
you know what?
It's smart.
I'm gonna blast that song. That's gonna become, everybody's got to hear this song.
My girlfriend would be so mad if I started playing that whenever I'm going to send it to go outside or something. I don't know.
I don't know who to send it to. I don't know anyone that fits. I don't have any close family that fits into that age group, but I think that's great. And then this is another study. We've had some studies about wearables being used to detect COVID-19 symptoms kind of before, or rather detect COVID-19 before some of the symptoms appear. And there are multiple organizations that are working on different ways of seeing if wearables can do that. We've had body temperature measurements from rings, wearable rings, and now Fitbit has done a study. And it's, kind of early findings so far, but it wants to find an algorithm to identify infections early. Now, this is the big detail here. It's been able to detect half of coronavirus infections the day before symptoms appear with about 70% specificity. And this is, early days again, but that's a pretty good signal that, there's something to this, so to speak. They've definitely found something, and they can continue to work on making the algorithm just as it needs to be to properly detect or pre-detect. I mean, this is entirely before the symptoms that we know of start to appear. So this could catch people early, make sure that people are self-isolating and doing all the things that they need to do, and then going and getting tested and stuff like that. Have you had a test yet?
I have.
Have you needed to?
I don't even know if I've interacted with anyone outside of my home since.
That's good. We
did one social distance hangout in the backyard and never got within 6 feet of each other. And then I think I've gotten money out at the gas station or something like that, but pretty much
That's
nothing.
Awesome.
So I haven't felt the need to.
That's good. Yeah. That's great. I'm kind of jealous of you. So my partner works in a job that's public facing. And I think it was last week for about 3 days, his temperature was a little elevated. It wasn't quite into fever territory. I guess it got that way at one point, but it was elevated. And so obviously there was that concern. And so he and I went and got tested, and this is going to sound weird, and just bear with me because I'm a big weirdo and I like to experience new things. Hold on. I was bummed because they didn't do the nasopharyngeal tests at this place. Yeah, so that's where they scratch your brain. They don't scratch your brain, but they go through your nasal passages all the way back into your throat or up in that space between and swab there. This one was, I think it's called a post nasal or a pre-nasal something. Anyway, they go up into the top of your nostrils essentially, and they swab both sides. So yeah, it's a little bit sneezy. But the test was, I'd been checking my temperature each day and I was fine. And, my watch wasn't telling me anything special. My normal things that I do wasn't telling me anything special. So it was just him with the fever. And so we both went and got tested and good to go. But it was...
Bury the lead there.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe I should have started with that. I'm fine. And I like the idea of people getting this information as quickly as possible, because that's the big thing is if you are in a position, for you and I, the only interaction that I have really with the outside world is through him. And so it's not directly. And so for the most part, yeah, you and I kind of get to stay at home and don't need to worry about that. But for people who do go into public places because their job requires them to, or need to go into public places for other reasons, to know before the symptoms even show up and say, okay, something might be off here. Let me go get tested. I mean, we had to register online and we were able to go and get tested the same day that we registered online. Wow. And they took the stuff and I didn't pay anything. It was free. So what I'm trying to get at here is it can be so simple to get tested, and then make it so that you don't end up giving anyone else the infection or COVID-19. And this helps make that happen faster and, sooner, so that we stop the spread that way. So I'm excited about this. I think this is great.
Especially, the day before the symptoms occur makes a huge difference, because if it's just that next day, then you could be heading somewhere and decide not to go instead and not infect someone else. So that's definitely important. They were saying in the study too, like fatigue is the most common symptom. And the other interesting part was that only like half of people actually had a fever. And so they were saying temperature screening might not be enough. Somebody might still have it and you could detect it. So
what if you're just always tired though? What if you, like, since the day you were born, you've been tired?
Yeah, I don't personally have much experience with fatigue, but there's been times where you're like, oh yeah, that's what fatigue is. Like sometimes I'm just tired, and sometimes you're like, I can't move, and like my whole body hurts trying to do stuff. But even
I've never had flu, so true influenza, so I have no idea what that even feels like. I don't want to though, so knock on bamboo here.
One of the ones is heart rate variability too, which is an interesting. I want to study this metric more, but I don't have a great one-line explanation, but I'm pretty sure it's sort of your heart's ability to recover once you do strenuous activities. And so like I think I can actually. I'd have to look back at the data, but there's been some times where I've slept really poorly, and then I've noticed that the heart rate variability has been worse the next day because my body's basically struggling to get back to normal because it's like underpowered or whatever. So
yeah, HRV is more. That's kind of a symptom of a poor HRV. For folks who don't know, so heart rate variability. It's kind of a complex equation, but it's looking at it's almost the spaces between your heartbeats. And what that information can tell us is how our nervous system and our circulatory system, and in particular cardiovascular organs, are working together and properly communicating with one another. And it's clear that when we get more sleep and when we are less stressed and when we are happy, our HRV is better, meaning that the variability of our heart rate is much more variable, meaning that your brain is telling it, you need to respond in different ways depending on what's going on. And if your heart rate variability is not high, that means that it's kind of just doing the bare minimum and you're not having proper communication between two very important systems within your body. And studies have come to show that when you look at HRV, it's sort of like it's akin to opening up one of those panels on like a role-playing game that gives information. It's like The Sims. It's the happy mood meter almost. And it turns out that it gives so much information and insight about so many different aspects of our body. And it's a great metric for looking at our overall health and how well we're doing. So yeah, that's an important measurement, but I didn't realize that it could be used for health things in that way. And I think that's pretty exciting.
Nice. I'm going to research that more as well.
Yeah, there's a great app. It's called Welltory. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It might actually be Welltory, but it's Welltory. And anyone with an iPhone that has an LED light and a camera lens can use it. And it lets you track your HRV simply using those two lenses. So you basically put your finger over, it tells you which lens to put it over and the LED light, and it shines the light and then uses the camera lens to do what a pulse oximeter does and can measure the pulse in your finger to look at what your HRV is and then use that information to give you some insight into your health. It's great. And then it also, go ahead.
Doesn't the Apple Watch automatically calculate it based off of the stats it gathers?
It does, but only in certain instances. I think it's while exercise and meditation during those two things. I'm not 100%. So like Breathe, I think will also measure HRV. Newer versions of the Apple Watch might do it in other places, but for the longest time, it was just in those specific metrics that it was available. And then there are also some third-party actual physical devices that you can get that track HRV. But yeah, it's an interesting metric, and scientists continue to look at it as a way to tell us more about ourselves. We need to take a quick break, but we will be back with more in just a moment. I want to tell you about Raycon, who is bringing you this episode of Smart Tech Today. Whether you're working from home or working on your fitness, I'm your witness. You want what you are listening to be what you are listening to, not what your roommates, your neighbors, your significant other, or children are listening to. Everyone needs a great pair of wireless earbuds, but before you go dropping hundreds of dollars on a pair, you gotta check out the wireless earbuds from Raycon. Raycon earbuds start at about half the price of any other premium wireless earbuds on the market, and they sound just as amazing as other top audio brands you know. In fact, the newest model, which I have here, the Everyday E25 earbuds, are the best ones Raycon has made yet. You get 6 hours of playtime, you get seamless Bluetooth pairing, you get more bass, and you get a compact design that gives you a nice noise isolating fit. These things, first of all, look at this little bean. It's so cute. It's just this little tiny case, which is so nice. It's easy to carry around with you, slip away into a pocket. Got the charging right there on the back. I pop this open, and I've got my Raycons right there. Now, these things pull out, and you've got just this little nodule, this little device is all there is to it. You know, it's true wireless, and you get these two little earpieces that you insert into your ears. And that is actually what I like so much about these, is how small and easy they go in, they fit, and they are compact. You know, there's no stems sticking out of your ears. There's nothing like that. And one of my favorite things about them is the fact that they come with multiple ear tip sizes, more than any earbuds I've ever gotten. You get so many different tip sizes to make sure that they make the perfect fit for your ears. That's what I think is fantastic about them. Now, this is a company that was co-founded by Ray J, and also celebrities like Snoop Dogg, Brandy, and Mike Tyson are absolutely obsessed with Raycons. They love their Raycons. I think these are so great, and they come in a bunch of different colors. So if you know these plain black ones are not your style, you can get them in red and pink and some other colors as well. Now is the time to get the latest and the greatest from Raycon. You can get 15% off your order at buyraycon.com/STT. That's buyraycon.com/STT for 15% off Raycon wireless earbuds. buyraycon.com/STT. Thank you, Raycon, for sponsoring this week's episode of Smart Tech Today and hooking us up with some premium wireless earbuds in a tiny little package. I love this little bean. Awesome. All righty. Let us talk about the Google Assistant. I don't know why it needed that accent or voice or whatever that was, but apparently it did. What's going on with the Google Assistant? Well, first of all, the app for the Google Assistant has hit 100 million Play Store downloads. That's, as you've noted in the notes, Matthew, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of just an interesting milestone to see because we don't normally get these types of stats all the time, but 100 million people is nothing to sneeze at, especially, I mean, the article from 9to5 Google, it's like, you don't technically need the app 99% of the time because it's already pre-installed, but there is any type of customization and things like that does go through the app. So it's a pretty interesting metric. I wish it was less total and more like monthly or something like that, because it is just 100 million people over 3 years since 2017. So that doesn't necessarily give you too much insight if you end up, I don't know if these count as like re-downloads or something like that either, but always interesting to see how many people use these. I personally know that a lot of people underestimate how many people use smart assistants, especially something like Siri, just because they're all part of these devices, and especially Google Assistant is on Android versus an Amazon thing is only in the home, so there's less opportunity there. But it's fascinating. There's so many people, and I think, what was it? I remember tweeting out something like last summer where I was like, it's a niche, but that niche is larger than like any of your businesses or anything like that. So there's tons of people who are using this stuff, and it's not just like, oh, like what's this voice technology thing? It's 2020. We've had this for years and years now, and I think it's a lot more common than people realize.
Yeah, because like you said, it's pervasive. It's more than just the sort of more
like
techie, nerdy kind of ideas that people have about these smart assistants, and they're not considering the everyday stuff that happens. My youngest brother, firmly a post-millennial, I don't even know what they call them. There's a bunch of different names for them. Zennial,
Zoomer?
Whatever. Zoomer. Yes, the Zoomer of the family. He uses his assistant all the time. He's got Siri, but quite literally, he's just making a joke the other day about trying to send a message to the group chat. My mom had temporarily renamed our group chat to something funny, and he's like, great, now I got to say, message the group chat with this name. And I kind of had this moment where I thought, oh my goodness, you just use it for that. And then we use them for dictation, and there's, setting timers or setting alarms or all these different ways that these different assistants end up getting used, that I think people are more paying attention to some of the more nerdy and maybe more difficult requests or what have you, where they don't consider the everyday things that people use these for.
When they have the like speed tests and it's like, what's this random fact? Are you guys using assistants purely for trivia all day long? Like that has literally it's trivial. It has no actual value besides just the idea that you can know that stuff. Or like the speed test too. I mean, speed makes a difference because I definitely notice that the Echo like turns on my kitchen lights faster than Siri does, because it just gets it and processes it and turns it on right away. So that part is a little bit different, but yeah, I do love the assistant comparisons. I swear that's going to be a video that I'll make in the next year of doing those comparisons. And it's obviously totally not fair at all, but it's like, here's a custom shortcut that I built that does all this stuff. Like, I don't know if you could do that on Google Assistant, or you're getting closer and closer, but not to that level. But of course, it's got to be part of it. So
So, I mean, just going back to the kind of crux of the point here, I think that it's interesting that you can see a little bit about how people are downloading and using these because of the way that the Google ecosystem is set up, the Android ecosystem is set up, where there's no Siri app to download. And the Google Assistant kind of does exist as a default on the the main Android devices, but it also exists as a separate app. And I think that's fascinating. That sort of give and take that exists there that lets you get a little bit of insight. But I think that even if it has hit 100 million downloads, that's not really the full scope of things. That's not the whole story. And there are probably more than those 100 million downloads that are taking place.
I just found a headline that's there's 500 million users. So that makes sense.
There you go. Yeah.
But it is kind of like you can compare those dots and see how many, maybe more people downloaded it since staying at home or something like that. So it's interesting to keep track of. But yeah, they're also doing, the next story we got here is sort of an expansion on the Google Assistant features, which have been, I think 9 to 5 is calling it the NGA, the new Google Assistant, which is great. But so far it's mostly only been Google apps that are using the more advanced features. And that's, even now that I was just remembering, part of the whole Nest smart displays getting multi-audio controls is because they've added new features and just the visual support there. So similarly on the phones, they're extending the capabilities much like Shortcuts does, but and Siri itself with the Siri intents that they've been adding over time. But you can do things like Line is the major first example here, and they did a whole press thing because companies love to do that. But you can say like share the screenshot with somebody using Line, and it'll take a screenshot and pass it along there right away. So Some of
these are Google Assistant intents. That
like
are sort of making this more
basically.
possible. Huh. That's why it's called the NGA. Okay. That's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So you can do stuff now like reply with this, with line and things like that. So this is, again, just a first point in seeing what these new features will enable. But it does seem like smart displays and assistants got a lot smarter this year and kind of kicked up to the level that you would probably expect them to be at this point. So this is going to be cool to see.
Feature parity here is a good thing, exactly. Especially because I think that it enables more folks to be able to talk about this in a way that everybody understands, where you talk about, your main device, these smartphones, as kind of these very powerful automation platforms. And that only works if, everybody can kind of be part of that conversation and part of the sort of brain trust and get it from that point. So with the Google Assistant adding this extensibility and these intents and these integrations, I mean, it's kind of used to be where AI was the word that everybody had to have in their what is the word that I'm looking for? Their presentations and things like that. Whenever there was new software or hardware announced, these days it's kind of automation or some form of that, where it does seem to be important that you show that you can take your device and do so much more with it, whether it's via the assistant or it is through, some app like Shortcuts.
Just you saying that is, I think I remember the Google I/O where they first said AI, and I was like, that's not AI, that's just machine learning. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible, because now everybody's just going to say AI. And it totally is true. It's like, we basically don't even really have AI yet. And it's all like machine learning with an AI as like the marketing term for it. And it was just like, oh, please don't, because the problem is that it sets expectations way higher than what it's going to meet. This is not an artificial intelligence. These are if-then statements nested together, and then they work. So like, obviously there's more to that, but at least a lot of times it feels like that. And I will say, if you're building your own shortcuts, sometimes it is literally just that. So I think getting a realistic expectation for people is good. And I think like a common terminology is helpful too, because they were doing a little bit where they said shortcuts, but extensibility, yeah. I mean, we'll see, I guess, what's the catchphrase, the marketing term of the year next time with all of the automation stuff. I will say automation as a term strikes a lot of fear into people's hearts, and it implies, again, like robots doing your work as opposed to you automating work that you're doing and being able to do more yourself, which is what I love to do.
Yeah, empowering the user. That one of these episodes I'll have to talk about the automation that friend of the show, friend of my heart, Dan Sturm, helped me with to save me a bunch of time setting up show notes and things like that. And it was very involved, but what it does, there was not someone who had that job who was working for me who then lost that job. That was instead the case of me being able to not spend my time and, more importantly, my wrists on repetitively doing things that could be automated. And so it saved a lot of time. And
you are preaching to me right now, because
that's to be space.
I've spent the last 4 weeks doing very meticulous stuff for my upcoming project thing. And I've had some shortcuts that I was like, if I didn't do this, I would have quit, because there's no way I could physically get that work done without getting RSI or just spending a whole week doing it. And making the task automated and accurate is also another thing that's always really good. In theory, the assistant will get it right, but if it's following a set path, then it will always be consistent. And consistency sometimes is just as important as speed. But yeah, tons of cool Google Assistant stuff, and I want to see more. I want skills to get well, I guess they don't even call them skills, but I want those to get a lot more user friendly because I still don't know how to do them. And the second you give me the tools to be able to do it myself, I'm going to go to town. So I have to see it.
Alrighty, well, let's take a quick breath and then we will talk about the project that you have been working on. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. Alrighty, so let's see. We are in the midst of yet another series of wildfires. I am relatively new to the California state, and I don't know why that was weird, but it was weird. Anyway, I'm relatively new to California, and I moved here last year in July. Right at the end of July. And so I experienced my first wildfire season, which is why is that a season? But it is. And it was kind of scary, but also I was so new to it that it was just kind of like me learning it for the first time. And we're back at it again. And it is just, it's awful in so many ways. And I learned so many new things about the way that California fights fires, the way that
with prison labor. Is that what you're referencing? Yeah. Like we don't have enough firefighters right now because they let prisoners go home because of COVID. And so now that's a problem. It is in terms of capacity, I suppose. But yeah, I don't like that whole conversation. Is not good.
That's all I can say is
it's definitely an experience.
Yeah, it is. And I am more aware this time of the, air quality and that whole factor and being outside and smelling that smoke and sort of, we've spent so much time indoors, and now we're having to spend, for some of us, even more time indoors with all of the doors closed and windows shut and
no air conditioning.
Yeah, that's what really concerns me. I was thinking about you genuinely, and other folks who live in this area and don't have AC. What are you doing? Like, tell me about what you're doing. What are you, what's going on? You've got a project, but I just want to know how you're surviving this.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the whole experience, is that it's not just like my original idea was emergency situations, but it is just even being prepared ahead of that type of deal is always smart. I mean, thankfully it actually hasn't been terribly hot. It's been warm, but it wasn't like sweltering or anything. So that would have made it a lot worse. And I think we just got lucky being in Berkeley because we kind of get cooled down from the Bay. But I mean, I don't remember the timelines of anything anymore. I'm not going to lie. But I don't remember when the lightning strikes were, but there was over 1,000 lightning strikes in the Bay Area, Greater Bay Area. And I think Big Basin Redwood National Park, which is basically like the redwoods as people think of it, it seems like it's almost entirely burned, and that's around the size, or it's larger than the size of the island of Manhattan. Like I requested that somebody overlay the graphics, and I was like, wow, yeah, it's much bigger. But it seems like there was also a big scare this weekend. Everybody then was freaked out because at least the lightnings happened, but then really it's just lit fires. And then those started to grow and combine. And then what happened was the smoke drifted over the entire Bay Area, almost all of California and like the West Coast. And we've basically had 7 days of non-clear skies, not being able to open the windows once at all to get fresh air. And yeah, I mean, I've seen stories of people who were like, I was so hot, I opened my windows and then I could barely breathe. And I was like, don't be warm. Do not breathe in the smoke. It is, we'll get to it at the picks, but there's an app that compares how many cigarettes you're basically smoking with the air quality that you have outside. So that's been not great. Thankfully, we do have an air purifier because we learned that last time that you need to have the fresh air in the house. Otherwise, you're just going to be suffering. So that's not, we did have it on an automation and stuff, but we moved it to the middle of our house. And then the automation has been to leave it on full power for the last week. So it doesn't need any automation because it's just like always use it. I did notice the other day when I turned off one of my fans to have a call with somebody, I was like, oh my God, it's quiet. It's quiet. Like there's no noise pollution.
Right.
Like that's an interesting thing that comes from that is you have fans going all the time and then you kind of don't get any silence as well. But yeah, we've been checking the air quality. There was one time where we went outside and it was only moderate and we were like, oh, it's amazing. And then like 10 minutes later, I was like, all right, I can't, like, don't go outside. It's very bad. But the ways that we've been preparing, I mean, definitely one of the big things is just having any sort of supplies packed if you do need to leave your location. Like just in 2020, lots of stuff has happened. And so we over-prepared. We were getting a little freaked out, but it is like, because there has been major fires in the Berkeley and Oakland Hills in, I think, 91. And there was about 3 roads up there. And so it was a major problem because it was really dry and lit. And then people weren't really able to get out well. And so that kind of is what freaked us out is we live in between the hills and the water. So there's not really a whole lot of ways to get away from this. But a big thing, I built a series of shortcuts that are sort of aligned with some of the tips that you should do just to be careful. And some of it was like, even just engaging in this exercise and forcing myself to do it. I might not even use some of the shortcuts, but some of them are like, document your possessions. And I definitely did that. I guess I should back up a tiny bit and just for context, like my girlfriend's family did lose their home in the fires a couple years ago. So we've definitely been very aware of the effects that it can have. And I just went through my house and took a video of what we have, because then you can, if you need to claim insurance and things like that, you have video evidence of the things that you own. Another major thing we did was just create a checklist of all of the things that you would need in that situation and then pre-prepare it, have it either like sitting by the door if you're concerned about that, or just in a location where you know for sure. And even like some of the supplies that we went and found weren't all in the right spot, and it would have taken time to gather them and stuff like that. So getting that together ahead of time is really smart, especially fresh food, water. We have a cat, so keeping a bag of food, wet food, litter and things like that, the cat carrier, all of that ready to go. I made a shortcut that just opens that note just because I can. But then I've been using other ones just to monitor the air quality. So if you use the get weather conditions, and you can't do the forecast, unfortunately, because they can't tell you in advance where the wind is going to be blowing the smoke. But you can get the current weather, or you can get the current air quality index, and then the category, which is the explanation of what that index means, and also the volatile compounds in the air, like the distribution. And also another one that's interesting is just visibility, because right now I think it's like, or actually I can check. It was about 1.6 miles earlier, and yeah, now it's up to 7 miles. So that's kind of like another interesting insight you can get from checking that data, is just like how smoky does it seem in your particular area. But yeah, right now the air outside is unhealthy for sensitive groups. The air quality index in your area is 139. The visibility is 7 miles, and there are particulate matter less than 2.5 microns. There's 14, I don't know what that symbol, there's a UGM3, and then carbon monoxide is 0.52 parts per million. So I don't necessarily know what the pollutants all is, but that's something to worth look into as well. But I think a lot of people take air quality for granted, both having fresh air, and then when it isn't okay, people are like, oh yeah, I tweeted with someone who was like, I went on 2 runs and then I was coughing a bunch, and I was like, I was like, oh my God, I haven't left my house. There's no way I would exercise right now. Like you're going and breathing in smoke constantly. Like
I've been thinking about that myself because I've heard some other people saying that they've left. I had to go outside to check the mail at one point, and I was wearing my mask, and it still was so smoky. I could smell so much smoke. I can't imagine doing actual exercise outside right now. That seems ill-advised.
What's your score?
Say again?
Quality.
Oh, let's see.
I've been using that Air Visual map, by the way, that you recommended a while back.
That's the one that I like to use. I get a notification through that one daily. And no, you don't need access to my environment. 132. So also unhealthy for sensitive groups. And 48.1 particulates or whatever it happens to be. And then inside my house, I like to use this device. It's called Aware, AWAIR. The website's getaware.com. And it has a temperature sensor built in, a humidity sensor built in, a CO2 sensor, and then chemicals and particulate sensors. So it checks how many chemicals are in the air and how many particulates are in the air. If I didn't have my air purifiers running, I'm sure it would be much worse. I'm at 96 right now out of 100 is my score. So I've got, I've got a pretty good system set up. And overall, it's the lowest it's been. Let's see, this is set up by day. Seeing if I could do not the daily average, but per week. The lowest it's been is 80.3, and that was on Friday that it was at 80.3. But most of the time I'm doing a good job of keeping it between 90 and 97, which is again out of 100. And that typically goes down or up, not because of particulates, but because of chemicals in the air and not chemicals, but CO2 in the air because of breathing, and humidity is what ends up kind of hurting me. In fact, right now, the humidity is a little high. It's usually a little low, and that's because with AC running, it obviously is on the lower end of things. So I like to use this because, like I said, it's got a trend, which is nice so that you can kind of see how you've done overall and how particulates have been or haven't been in the air. And what's interesting to me too is how quickly you can see when the devices when the air purifier is turned on or turned off in the space based on how high the particulates get. And that quickly shows kind of, okay, that came down. No wonder why it smells clear in here. It feels good in here. And, it's not too high or too low. So, I like the Aware to do that. But there are multiple options, of course, for testing your air quality inside. And this is just one way of doing so.
I've got the Eve Room, and I was just checking that also while you were looking for yours. And I was glad to see that our room wasn't that bad because we have been keeping all the windows closed, so that does prevent most of it. But the funny thing was that overall, the range of air quality has been better in our room in the last week because we've been running the air purifier 24/7. So I bet it just slowly kind of pulls some more out of there than normal. So maybe normally I have an automation that it turns on the air purifier for like 2 hours in the middle of the night, but we had that problem where the first week it turned off in the morning because it was on that automation schedule, but we wanted it the whole day and it literally smelled smoky in our house. So it's definitely not something to mess around with. It makes a big difference and it can lead to more permanent things, which isn't great. I do have two more quick shortcuts. One of them just uses the URL for the Bay Area fire map from like the official California one. So it's a good way to sort of check in on the status of things. And if anyone's listening and hasn't really seen, you should check it out and get a scale of the size of, I can put it in our little chat thing too, but it's so massive. And the thing that I didn't even realize is a lot of people are paying attention to the one in Santa Cruz, but on the other side of San Jose, there's a large fire there too, that's covering much of the area. So that's pretty intense. And then I have two shortcuts. One of them I called Head to Safe Point. And this, as I was saying earlier, was kind of a goal of just pick a safe point and know where you need to go. Like, I don't necessarily think I would run this shortcut in the moment, but knowing ahead of time and having a destination that you're going to go to is good. And then I also built a sort of inspired by the police one that we talked about around the George Floyd protests, just one that's called We Are Evacuating, just in case. And it's set up so it has you program a contact, that safe point, and then it will get the maps URL from that point, as well as a bunch of travel time instructions. And then it will basically say, we're evacuating, we're heading to this location using this route. We should get there around this time. And it'll take this long for us to get there. Just every single piece of possible information you could tell them. It's just like, we should be there in 30 minutes, just so you know, kind of like, just in case if you haven't heard. And then also sends off that message, opens into driving directions straight there. And then I even did things of, it turns off low power mode, or no, it turns on low power mode so that your device drains slower, lowers the brightness, turns up the volume, turns off do not disturb so you can hear any messages if you have to. And then, then it opens into those directions. So it's kind of like a one tap, like I'm running out the door. I'm going to let my parents know that this is happening and then hopefully get out of there in time. So again, one of those shortcuts I hope you never, ever have to use, but it's always smart to think through all of the possible variables.
I like it.
Yep. And thankfully it hasn't, there was going to be it was definitely like a little doom and gloom, like there's going to be more lightning this week. And then it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have weeks and weeks of literally black skies. And like you said, quarantine and being able to go on a walk is a lot better than quarantine and not being able to leave your house at all. Like I tried to vacuum to just do something in the house. And then it's like vacuuming lowers your air quality inside. And you should not do that if you're stuck inside, because if you don't have good ventilation, you're basically just like pushing some dust or like your vacuum motor air and quality into the air. So yeah, it's kind of keep busy as much as you can if you are stuck in this situation. We've been checking the air quality a lot. Gonna try to find the one point where it's at an acceptable level, open the windows for a tiny bit, then run the air purifier full volume again. So that's kind of our approach right now. But hopefully it will not happen again this year, because that's kind of one of the freakiest parts is that it's August and the major fires happened in November last time. So that's a long fire season, as you were saying. So I hope that this is the end of the worst part.
Well, we shall see. Let's take a quick break. Yeah. Or do you have anything else you want to add to the project section?
Nope. That's good.
All right. Well, we will take a quick break and come back with our picks of the week. All righty, Matthew Cassinelli, why don't you go ahead and tell me, you gave the listeners a little bit of a hint about what your pick of the week would be. And tell us all about it, because I downloaded this and I was bummed.
I hate it. Yeah, I do not like it. So the app has asterisks in the title because it's got some swear words in there, but I'll say it's stuff I smoke. Replace stuff with something else. But basically the app,
shoot, I smoke.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh no. But what this does is let you see the air quality index. It does have to use only specific stations, so it's not super localized. But what it does is it translates, if the air quality is that bad, that's the equivalent of smoking X number of cigarettes. And so that's fun. That's a good way to tell you what it's like to be outside in poor air quality. Right now, ours actually isn't terrible. It says 1.3 cigarettes a day, but earlier it was saying 3.7, which is like 30 a week. And then monthly is like, oh my God. So that's where you're kind of like, I guess even right now, it would be like if I smoked 10 cigarettes this week, which, just to clarify, I do not smoke cigarettes. So that is not something that I would ever want to do. And then the idea of doing 10 of those in a week is like, no, thank you. So if you can stay inside and avoid that, you will be avoiding basically smoking a bunch of cigarettes, not by choice. So
yeah, I think that's what this is good for. This is, as much as this is a bit of a bummer app, it is a good way to, because I think that some people, maybe there's guilt that they experience about not doing their exercises or feeling the need to get out for this reason or that. And, you know, if you're looking for a reason to convince yourself or others that it's really better if you stay indoors, then I think this is one way to do that. It's just kind of a very, it's hard to think about to conceptualize air quality and what exactly that means, but people can understand what it means smoking cigarettes. So I like that there's a conceptualization for that air quality.
Yeah, that was a big thing that I didn't mention earlier, is that, I mean, I think Apple Watch got air quality index on the larger display a few years ago. And when it first came out, I remember seeing people who live in San Francisco being like, why do you need to know about the air quality index? And it's like, I had no idea what those numbers meant. But now that I live in the Bay Area, I mean, I guess I didn't even really say. It's like 0 to 100 is generally okay-ish. Anything above that starts to be unhealthy. At some places, like the really bad air pollution in India and China can get over 500 to 600 and stuff like that we've seen in the Bay Area this week. So it is like, it's pretty intense, and it's worth, like, looking at AQI once won't help you really. You got to look over time and understand and really know. Like, now I know if it's ever above 75, I'm probably not going to go outside, or I'm going to wear a mask, because it's not good for you. And I don't, on trend with this year, I don't need something to kill me to not want it. I'm going to completely avoid it if it's going to be harmful to my health. So definitely, this is a great way to smash into your brain that it's like, oh, you just smoked 40 cigarettes this week. You've never smoked before. How's that feel? Like,
congratulations.
Yeah.
Well, mine is a way to go about fixing this problem. So I think I remember talking on this show not too long ago where I wasn't able to hear out of one of my ears for a while. I had somehow suffered a sinus infection that led to me not being able to hear out of one of my ears. My ear was just clogged for so long, and it was the most annoying thing. And so I have and have had for some time a Coway Air Mega, I think it's called, or Coway Air Mighty. It's an air purifying system, and it is what's it called? The Coway Air Mega AP1512 Anyway, it's this square, and it has, you know, your standard HEPA filter in it, and a charcoal filter and a particulate filter, and it sucks in air and then blows the purified air out of the top. And I've had that since before I moved to California, and I run it pretty much all the time on one. And then at night, the dogs sleep downstairs in sort of the living room space. And so I put it on 3 at night so that if I happen to get up and use the restroom or something like that, they don't hear that, think there's somebody at the door and bark and all that kind of stuff. So it serves as both a white noise kind of thing. And then also it's running the air filter at high to keep the air getting cleaned. Well, when I had that infection, the last time that something like that happened to me, it ended up being an allergy thing. And I ended up having to take steroids for allergies and all this other stuff. It was this whole process to sort of cut back my allergic reaction to pollen. And so I decided that one air filter was not going to cut it or one air purifier was not going to cut it. I wanted to have one that is in the main space because it's such a big space. And really, you're supposed to use these kind of, you put them in a room, you close the room, and that's how they're supposed to work. And so one air filter in one space is not really going to do what all you need it to do. But I didn't want to get another Air Mega. They aren't super expensive, but they're not super cheap either, or super inexpensive either. And so I was looking for something that was a little bit more cost friendly and that was a little bit more space saving, so that I could use it in either the office or in the master bedroom and do it with the door closed. And so that space would have its own air filter. The Air Mega could serve in its own space. And I ended up going with what I call the big HomePod.
Yeah, it totally looks like one.
It is the Levoit air purifier. It is a wire cutter pick. And it looks like a big old HomePod. So it's kind of, or like a Minion. People know the Minions. Some hate them, some love them. I happen to be in the camp that doesn't mind them, but a lot of people hate them. So you probably know the Minions in one of those ways. So it's sort of tater tot shaped, Minions shaped. And at the bottom, it has holes that inside is a filter. And it's a multi-layer filter. And so the air gets sucked in and it filters it out and then spits it out of the top. And on the top, you've got buttons, for turning it on. What I love is that it's got a mode to turn off because it's LED lights. And so you can turn off the lights so at night it doesn't, blast your retinas or anything like that. It's got a built-in timer for both the unit itself to sort of say, hey, I only want this to run for 4 hours or 6 hours or whatever, but also a built-in kind of date or calendar system so that it knows and can alert you when it's time to change the filter inside. It's got different fan
Change
modes.
Your filters after all these smoke things.
Exactly. Yeah. I know I've already, so I leading up to fire season, I bought new filters for my Air Mega that sits in my main space. And then I know that after the fire season has come to an end, or probably, halfway through fire season, I'm going to need to change this out as well. And so right now, Kevin is scrolling through the page and there are multiple types of filters. So you can get one that's just a normal one. You can get one for pet allergies. You can get one for toxin absorption, and then one that's for kind of mold and mildew. And so that's good for a more moist space, which I know people hate that word, but get over it. And then it's also, it looks nice. I like how it looks. And nice. It's bigger than I thought it was going to be. The tater tot is a lot larger than I expected. But what I love is that at one point, the AC came on. I'm sorry, I have AC. But the AC came on and I could smell smoke a little bit in the space, smell it just a little bit. And I was going, okay, I know that I'm smoking cigarettes now. And so I brought down the tater tot and sat it on one side of the room, and I ran the Coe on the other side. And I came back downstairs later that day and the air smelled so pure and fresh and clean. And awesome. I don't know, there's just nothing like it. I mean, we have to breathe this oxygen. That's kind of how we survive. And so the best thing you can do for yourself is make that oxygen as clean as it can be. Within, again, there's this little pedant that sits inside of my head that gets all pedantic toward me. And then I always think that there's also that same person that's out there also saying the same thing. And so someone's out there complaining about how a pure oxygen environment is actually dangerous and can lead to death and all that kind of stuff. But if we ignore the pedant, then clean, fresh, clear oxygen in your air is a good thing. And so honestly, they may seem like a bit of an investment, but it is an investment that will help, I think, anybody, even if you don't live in a space where you have fires that are trying to consume you at all times, or you don't live in a space that you have pets, even if you just live alone and it's just you, you may not realize how much dead skin is sloughing off your body in a given day. And if you are not using a quality HVAC filter, if you do have AC, and if you don't have AC and you are just counting on sort of, holy God, I almost knocked everything off my desk just then. And if you don't have AC and you're just kind of having things go throughout your house with a fan, I just think everybody could be helped by having an air purifier in their home. And so find one that works for you and make the investment, and it's going to help you and your space, and you will breathe better, and you may not even realize it. Suddenly your post-nasal drip is gone and you don't have the allergies that you once had, and maybe that fatigue that you were like, I don't think people realize how important and how much can be impacted by this. So yeah, I'm recommending my pick of the week is it's $99.99. So again,
that's still pretty good though.
An investment, but so worth it to me to have now 2 air purifiers in my space, that one can kind of be more portable and I can move it around wherever I need it. And the other one kind of is just for the main space that I have it in, and works well there. Both are wire cutter picks. And nice. For me, that is kind of my everything when it comes to before I buy anything anywhere else. Before I buy a thing that I know I need, I try to go there first and see if it's one of their reviews. And the Koei Air Mega was a fantastic thing and worked great in my space. And this now is a fantastic option that works great in my space. So that's nice. My pick of the week. And folks, that brings us to the end of another episode of Smart Tech Today. If you want to tell us about your air purifying system, or what you're doing to test your air quality, or any number of things, well, you can email us. It is stt@twit.tv. Right now, we record the show live every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 2300 UTC. And you can check us out live by going to twit.tv/live. But if you don't want to wait for the show to be live and tune in, then the best thing you can do is subscribe to the show, because then it will be delivered to your podcast app of choice wherever you happen to subscribe to podcasts. We've got it in both audio and video formats. If you watch on YouTube, you can head there. It's on Spotify. You can get it on Pocket Cast. I mean, it's everywhere you want to be, like a certain credit card was at one point. And if folks want to follow you online and see all the great work that you do, Matthew Cassinelli, where do they go to do that?
They should... I've been teasing this for so long, and I'm actually going to release it next week for sure. I've set the final date and I cannot change it. So MatthewCassinelli.com, check in the next week. I'll probably talk about it on this show before it actually launches again, but I'm excited. I've been working all summer on something, so I'm ready to share it. Where should people follow you?
Oh, they can follow me at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media networks. And then also at Chihuahua.coffee, CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which has links to the different places that I put things online. Alrighty, folks, breathe in and say goodnight to your smart assistants.
Good night.
He did it. He did the thing. Excellent.
Hey, I'm Jason Howell, host of Hands on Android. Every week, I take a look at the Android operating system and the phone that you have in your hands to tell you how to use it better. Is it tips? Is it tricks? Is it little-known secrets, experiments, even emails from fans of the show? You name it, we talk about it on Hands on Android. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/HOA and make sure that you do that so you don't miss a single episode. We'll see you there.